equally important, you have to know their fight language, like how they fight, and then how you are going to together solve it. That's really important. So even at the beginning of the relationship, I told him, look, I'm a person and I act like that when I'm angry and I act like that when I'm sad. And you need to handle me in this particular way.
Welcome to International Love Story, the podcast about intercultural relationships. My name is Christina, and in today's podcast episode, I would like to welcome Surbi and Dario. Surbi and Dario, they are living in the UK at the moment, and they recently traveled all the way back to the UK from India, where Surbi is originally from. But Dario is originally from Italy. I'm so happy to have you here today, even though you are most probably still a little bit jet lagged, that you took the time to talk to me, to share your love story, and I can't wait to get to know you guys a little bit better. So with this being said, let's just dive directly into it. Who are you? What are you guys doing? Tell us all about you.
Okay, thank you, Christina, for having us. We have never done something like that, so we are also super excited and see how it goes. So yeah, my name is Surbi Rana, and I'm originally from Delhi, India. I'm a plant molecular biologist by profession, and I work here in the UK. I'm doing my postdoctoral research here. I moved to Europe like about 6.5 years ago, so it's been some time. I was in Switzerland before for 5 years, and it was just last year that I moved to the UK. And yeah.
My name is Dario Baccaro. I am from Napoli, South Italy, and I am a mechanical engineer. I did my PhD in nuclear fusion in Switzerland, and now I work for an authority here in the UK that does research in the nuclear fusion field.
When did you move to the UK?
I moved October 2020.
And that was also the time you guys met in the UK during COVID, or?
No.
Or what's the story behind it?
So we met in Switzerland. I was 18.
18, yes.
17, 18, something like that.
18.
13. So we met in 2018 in Switzerland. We were both doing our PhDs over there. And we met at my birthday party. Me with one of my friends, we used to do like a combined birthday barbecue around the lake every year. So he was friend of my friend. And that's where we actually met for the first time.
We met at their birthday, and this friend of mine first introduced us, but we were a bit behind in the crowd. So the first meeting that we had, she actually doesn't remember that. But then after I saw her for the first time at that barbecue, I told a friend of mine that I like that girl.
And then this friend of his, he comes to me and then he introduced himself like, hey, hello. And he said, do you know, girl, by the end of this day, you're going to get married. I thought, what? What kind of joke is that? But then I started to like play along with that. And I was like, oh, really? And then where is my husband? He said, your husband is just there. He just went to pee. He will be back. Just let me know once he's back. I'm very happy to meet him. And then I just went with my friends, and then he introduced us, and I was just like playing along, like this was like a humor going on. We went around the lake. We went to the lake, and then he gave me his sweatshirt. After that, I had it, and then I went with my friends. So the next day we met again to return his sweatshirt to him, and he kept on insisting to go for dinner. And I didn't want to go. I was like very reluctant.
You know, she's Indian, so Indians, they are a bit...
I got suspicious, like why this guy is just all of a sudden.
I mean, culturally, they are a bit reluctant in meeting other people, the other gender, no? Because if they meet someone, eventually it's to marry them directly. So yeah, she was a bit reluctant. So initially she tried to push me away, but instead I am quite stubborn. So I just kept insisting.
And that night, like, so the day after the party, we went for dinner. And the day after that, he was going back to Italy and I was going on a vacation with my friends to France. So we kept in touch a bit on the messages, on the phone, by WhatsApp. And then we were like together as a couple after like 3 months after that.
Yeah, 3 months after this party, we officialized our being a couple.
The first time you had a conversation with Sophie at the bar, right? Where your friend, if I understand correctly, Dario, he was the matchmaker that night.
Yeah.
And how was it for you once you had this conversation and you were like, okay, that's actually the girl I really wanted to talk about or talk with when I first met her. Now we are like having this conversation. Like, How was it? How did it feel? And most importantly, what was your first impression?
Well, I mean, the first impression was a bit weird because, as I told you, we had actually that night, we had the two introduction. The first one that she does not remember, and the second one where my friend instead was a bit more strong, let's say, yeah, a bit more catchy in the introduction. It was weird. I mean, the first introduction that we had, her friend asked me, "What do you think? Where do you think she's from?" And then I said, "I don't know, from Naples, my same city." And then they laughed to say, "No, she's from India." I said, "Oh, okay." But yeah, as soon as I saw her, I said, "Okay, I like her." You know, that kind of feeling that you just have it without explaining. I talked to this other friend of mine, and then he said, "Okay, let me do my job. I will make things work."
Also, like the first date we had, like not dates. So the day after when I went on dinner with him, he was like so quiet the whole time. He was not talking. And I was all the time like chatter, 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 chatter. And I was like, why? Is he really shy? Or what's the problem? And then months after that, he told me, because that time he was taking English classes and he didn't speak English that very well, right?
I went to Switzerland for my PhD, but at that time my English was very rudimental, very, very rusty. So I was not able, especially for some accents, I was not very able to understand them. Her accent is quite mild, but overall Indians, they have a very strong accent. So we went to this pizzeria, so there was a bit of noise, background noise, and in addition, her accent was not the easiest for me. So essentially, we hung out that night. But yeah, it was quite silent night.
But for me, it was a quite good impression. I was like, oh, he just listens. He's a good listener. So for me, that was a very good first impression I had.
I love that. Especially like knowing what you guys know nowadays, like the first impression was probably changed a little bit and you really got to know each other very well over the past few years. What happened afterwards? I mean, after 3 months, you, Dario, you were super stubborn. You tried to win her for you so that, yeah, basically that it's going to lead into the direction where you are nowadays, living in the UK, living together. But there's a lot to talk about, like between 2018 and between 2023, obviously. How did it move on from there on? Like when it comes to telling the families, like, hey, I'm dating this girl, she's from India. Hey, I'm dating this guy who's originally from Italy. And what brought you to where you are nowadays?
Soon after we started, we were together. We started to travel. So he was going on a conference to Sicily, and he asked me if I want to join him after the conference. And then I was like, why not? I mean, I love to travel, and this was a good opportunity to see a country with a person who already lives there. And so we went to Sicily. He took me to his parents, and it was just 3-4 months after that. 4 months after that.
It was September. It was 2 weeks.
2 weeks after we were together, I went to Sicily, and then from there to Naples to meet his parents. But it was just, he told his parents that it's just a friend. What did you tell? No, you told them. Yeah. Okay, I didn't tell my parents at that time, of course. But for me, it was very strange. But he was like, no, it's fine. In Italy, it's all right. You can introduce to your parents so early on in a relationship. So for him, it was quite okay.
So it was a bit a mixed bag in the sense that we were at the early stage of our relationship. So under some aspects, we were still at the beginning
each other.
And then instead on some other things, it seemed like we were moving a bit faster than usual. And actually, I was going for this conference and she told me that she wanted to come to the conference with me. And I told her that afterwards I was going to Naples to stay with my parents. And she was fine with that. I said, okay, if you are fine, I'm fine. I'm fine too. So yeah, and then my parents were quite chill in the sense that I remember I told I was on the phone with I met my mom and I told her, look, I am with this girl, and she said, oh, where is she from? I said, India. And then she was a bit startled, like, because of course there was the language barrier eventually for her as a mother-in-law. But then they were quite chill. They were quite fine with that.
And how was the first conversation with his parents? So they you communicated not in English, right? You just basically with hands and feet, how you would say in German, like.
Well, It's still an ongoing story in the sense that every time she meets my parents, it's always very tiring for me because I have to keep translating English, Italian, Italian, English because my parents, they just speak English. My mom is a bit more flexible in the sense that we used to travel a lot when I was a kid, and she was always like that. Even though she doesn't know the language, she make it work. So either with the hands, hand gesture, or with the Google Translate, or if I am there, just with me translating every word. So just they manage to talk to each other.
Now it's a bit more easier, and from January onwards, I'm taking some Italian classes, so it will get better.
My work will get
a bit easier.
Easier, less stressful.
What I miss out the most, so with his family, it's still a bit easier because he's translating, and then we will translate, and we kind of know each other's emotions in a way. So I know what she's going to talk about. It's fairly easy. But when I have to go and meet his friends, or we are in a gathering with his friends or his family around, then I feel a bit more left out. And that actually I realized on our wedding. And I was like, I would like to be part of these conversations. And now that I'm taking classes soon.
Recently, we were just talking about it before starting the record button. You guys went to India. And it was your first time there, are you right?
Yeah, it was my first time. Yes, it was quite big trip and quite a big experience. So yes.
So you were able to take some time as well to meet her family and friends. And I guess they're still living in India, most of them, right?
Of course, we stayed with her family. So I met them, and I had quite a lot of time with them. And I also met some friends. Yes.
But they were part of the wedding as well, may I ask, right? Because you just mentioned that you guys got married. Well, how did this fold out?
No, so my parents couldn't come to our wedding because Italy, and it was very spontaneous.
Okay, how spontaneous?
It was, beginning of this year. I had to, what was it for? So we did some documentation. So there's a lot of paperwork. I had no idea so much paperwork for that. So we had to do some paperwork that we did the end of last year in Switzerland. And that paperwork was getting towards the date of its expiry, beginning of this year. So we were like, we will have to do all this stuff again if we don't do it this time. My Swiss permit was getting expired around the same time. So we were like, okay, we need to do it now. Otherwise, we will keep on pushing it and it will get delayed. So that's when we were like, okay, whatever earliest date we can get at the council in Italy, we just took it, and then we just flew from here to Italy. And then I think within 1 or 2 weeks, we just did it. But it was still quite nice because in India, when it's a court marriage, you just go to the court marriage, like to the registrar, you sign and you come back and that's all. And it's still a bit more work because you still have to, it's in a castle. The office is in a castle. So people still dress up, and there was a photographer, there was a photo session before.
Well, it's not in Italy everywhere. It's just that in my city, we have the city council that is based in the biggest castle of my city.
Yeah, so we were like, okay, and his mom was like, I still have to find a good wedding dress. And then days before, we went to Italy, we were rushing every place to find like a decent wedding dress for me. We had to get a photographer that was one of his friends. And then afterwards, there was a dinner at the end. So we went to a bar first to celebrate. And then afterwards at night, we had like a dinner with only his friends and his family. So my family couldn't join.
In a couple of weeks, we started from, hey, we are getting married to actually getting married.
Sounds super stressful, but I actually know exactly what you're talking about because in our case, it also went quite fast. So I guess, I don't know what your plans are for the future, but what our plan is that hopefully one day we'll be able to have like a big wedding with the German side and the Argentinian side. That would be like a dream come true, to be honest. Let's see when this is going to be the case. But maybe that's also in your plans that someday, somehow you're gonna have a huge family celebration, maybe.
It's so complicated too. And all of this, especially with these two families that are living like so apart and like to plan something. We have been working on that as well.
Yeah, definitely we would like to do that at some point. We want to have a celebration all together.
In our case, it's like, obviously I met my in-laws, but what did not happen yet is, as mentioned, like this family reunion, that we were able to find a date and a place where everyone has time to come together and to meet each other in person. What we usually do is on Christmas, for example, that we would call my husband's parents, and then they would be on FaceTime and joining our dinner or anything like that, But they are both speaking Spanish and just a little bit of English, but they can't really have a conversation in English. But it's still like fun, and it's still cool to see how well they get along, even though they're just like on the phone like this and not really speaking the same language. May I ask, now that you have been to India, to dive a little bit deeper into her culture as well and to meet her family and friends, how do you feel about that?
Of course, they already knew about us. We had some course. We only met virtually, but they were very nice. Her brother, her sister, they are very nice. They're very friendly. But the entire family was very welcoming, and I felt very.
So my family speaks English, so that was not a problem for him. My dad, not so well, but he still tries. So for me, it was personally funny when he was talking to my dad. But with my mom, my sister, and everyone else, it was fine. But there was some issues, especially when it comes to the accent. So my mom wouldn't get what he said, so she would ask me and say the same thing in an Indian accent, and then she will understand it. So even though she's an English teacher, she will be like, "Surbi, can you tell me what they need you to say?" Or what? So yeah, these like little moments were there.
Yeah, but that makes the conversation extra funny, obviously.
My brother and my sister would start to make fun of my mom, like, "Come on, you're an English teacher, you can't understand your fruit."
Can imagine how the conversation went on from there on, and I'm sure you had a great time over there. I can imagine that you made some fun within your own relationship, like you're always like that because you're Italian, you're always like that because you're Indian, and somehow you decided to share your stereotypes you're dealing with for the public in a very funny way, but in my opinion, also in a very educating way. I just love watching your reels. So how did you end up doing that, may I ask?
It was this summer, right? So we had just moved to the UK, and honestly, beginning of the move, we didn't have anything to do over the weekends. We were already settled in. We had our wedding, and yeah, everything was okay. We were settled in our new work. I mean, I was settled in my new work. He was already here before. It's not very easy to make friends in a new place as an adult, I would say. That's when we decided, like, let's let our creativity flow in this way. And then we decided to make an Instagram and bring this out to the world. So initially, I showed it to my family, the content, and my sister and my brother, they really liked it. They were like, yeah, it seems good. People will love it. And yeah, and that then happened. So we were also having a lot of fun doing that. It also taught us so many things because I'm a very impatient person. And then if the shot doesn't come like, in one go, I get very like cranky, and I'm like, no, you're not doing it correctly. You have to do it like that. And then he will be like trying to, he's very patient. And then it made me reflect also like, I need to be a bit calm down about this, it's supposed to be fun. Also this way, I think he and I myself, we learn a lot about each other cultures as well, because sometimes we are sitting and brainstorming, okay, how about this? How about that? And then I come up with this thing and he's like, oh, this is how it's done in India. And I'm like, yeah. And then I tell him a story, when I was a kid, I was with my grandfather, this is how things were. So it also makes me, go back to the things, to the way I was living when I was in India. Because living in a foreign country, you tend to lose your culture a bit. I felt that in Switzerland because there was not a very big Indian community there. So doing these reels and making these content also helped me to, kind of stay in touch, because when I talk to people, they comment, they send me messages about some things, and then we share some stories and some incidents. It brings me a lot of joy.
Yeah, you can definitely see that you love what you're doing. I mean, otherwise you wouldn't be so consistent. Like, you are getting reels out there on a daily basis almost. And as mentioned again, like the stereotypes you're working with, I think they are hilarious. And I can identify myself or us in those as well. I love that you guys, by creating content together, also have some serious conversations and dive deeper into the one or the other topic in order also to learn more about one another's culture. So thinking a little bit about stereotypes, different cultures, like was there anything when you think back the past few years where you think like, okay, that's typical for Italians and that's typical for Indians, and somehow we will not meet in the middle, but this is just the way it is and we're going to deal with that because we know we're not going to find common ground? Or are you always able to find common ground somehow?
One thing I would mention, and then you can tell about my mom story. But before that, about these common grounds. So I think in food, we have a very different food habits. So being from India, we were mostly eating vegetarian food. I would have chicken maybe like once a week. And most of my diet was based on lentils and, legumes and all these things. For him, it's the other way around. Most of his diet is based on meat. And for me, that was very different. And for me, it's very hard to digest if I'm eating just meat all the time. And for that, what we have now is like, we have like a common breakfast routine that we both like, and he makes it and then he serves. Then for the lunch, it's completely separate. I prepare my own lunch and he prepares his own lunch. And then for the dinner, we come together and something that we both like. And then on the weekends, we do something like very Indian or some Italian food. Because initially when we got together, we were like, I don't know how it's going to be about the food situation because I can't eat what he eats and he can't eat what I eat a lot. So we have during the weekdays, we keep it separate. And then on the weekends, we indulge in each other's.
Talking about what are the differences that may emerge even from our reels, as they are based on some stereotypes, as you say. And normally we don't, except for the food that we have to have, so the meals, normally we don't try to meet in the middle. We just try to embrace each other's culture. She comes to know something about my culture, she embraces that, and vice versa. So yeah, we don't try to compromise on anything.
That's so important. Nothing else to add to that. Very well said. I feel like also we have skipped a part because, now you're living in the UK, but you start dating in Switzerland. When did you guys move together? Like once you moved to the UK, or were you living together beforehand already?
No, so after he finished his PhD, he moved. He got a job over there, but I started my PhD over there. So because his was 3 years and mine was 5 years. So first 3 years, we were still there. And then for 2 years, last 2 years, he was in the UK and I was in Switzerland. So 2 years, like a long distance.
Yeah.
And that's when we had like a real talk when he got the job and he was about to move to the UK. And I was like, okay, so this is going to be a bit different from now. Because before that, we never had any serious relationship talk in our thing. Like we never had this thing that we're going to get married or these kind of things. We never had like a plan. We were like, we like each other's company. We are good. We work good as a partners. And so we just go with the flow. And then it was like he was moving. And then we were like, okay, so where is our relationship going? Because I like how it's going and he likes how it's going. And if it's going to be long distance, I want to know that we are both on the same page so that we both are putting efforts in there. And it's not just one is trying and the other one is like meh. And then he was like, yeah, he wants it to. That's why the long distance was not that difficult. He was making efforts to come to Switzerland like almost every month and then work. And then I couldn't go to the UK because of my visa problems. But then, we made it work quite well. And then afterwards, I finished my PhD. I went to India for a couple of months to take a break. At that time, I already found a job here in the UK. After my holidays in India, I came to UK. So my work is in east of England and he was in Oxford. So he had to then move from Oxford to where we are, Norwich. And for him to go to work, it's like 4 hours of commuting one way doing it. I'm very grateful for that.
But then, after I was in the UK for a couple of years, then she moved here as well. And then after we got married, we started living together.
What I love, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems like because you, Daria, you were like, okay, I'm still gonna move to the UK because I have this job opportunity there. And also what you were just saying about the different cultures, that you are embracing each other's culture instead of meeting in the middle ground and trying to bend. So clearly shows that even though, so obviously you love each other, there's a strong bond between you guys, but you're still individuals. You still have like different backgrounds, different visions, and you make it work without bending too much into one direction. Talking about like in general, your past, met, the whole long distance relationship for 2 years, like reunited, living in the UK, somehow starting a new chapter of your book. What are the future plans? Because you've mentioned that eventually you're going to move again within the UK, but what else is there for you? What else is coming for you?
Well, I mean, yes, soon we have to move still within the UK because of her postdoc location. About the UK, we really like the fact that we can speak the language, so it's very easy for us. But there are some aspects that we don't really like. So eventually, one day we probably would like to move elsewhere.
Probably back to the EU.
Yeah, probably back to the EU, because we have a cat, and for us, being in a pet-friendly country is very important. Here in the UK, some regulations are not very pet-friendly. There are many issues for pet parents, so it's a very big issue for us.
Where could that be? Do you have any idea yet? Or like any favorite countries where you see yourself?
I think that mostly depends on my work because it's a pretty small niche and it's not very easy to find companies working in nuclear fusion. So first we have to figure out what would be a country that would give that kind of opportunity, and then we can work around. I think Germany might be a nice country. If we could go back to Switzerland, we would also like it.
His family is also there.
Yeah, my sister lived in Switzerland, so yeah.
So close to the family somewhere. And then in the far, far, far future, I would like to move to somewhere south of Italy, like in a countryside, big house, have a lot of cats. I will have a lot of hen and dogs. And like that's like my retirement plan.
That's so cool.
Yeah, I mean, after retirement, probably South Italy is one of the best places.
It's interesting because I have the same vision, but a small house with a lot of land and a lot of donkeys somewhere in Argentina. That would be my dream come true, to be honest.
I want to grow like my own fruits and vegetables, have a lot of, something like that.
Living life somewhere nice and quiet, no?
Yeah.
Sounds amazing. You guys, you've been together for quite a while already, dating since 2018, being married, having big plans for the future, and also going with the flow, because in the end, you don't really know yet where you'll end up. And after all, I sense also that you're quite easygoing when it comes to that. And yeah, I think it's a super, super lovely story. I really, really enjoyed listening to your love story, especially how you guys met, and especially that Dario had to make the first step and was very pushy to make it work, so that we are having the conversation now. Thank you for that. And thank you to the matchmaker, by the way, to your friend.
Yeah. I will always be thankful to him.
So you guys are still friends, obviously. That's so cool. After all the experience you have made, after all what you've been through, including the long distance relationship you had, what is your biggest learning, and what is the advice you would like to share with everyone who is watching at the moment and who's listening?
I think that one of the main learnings is that probably is the one that we already mentioned, in the sense that if you come from two very different cultures, automatically you may have quite some differences. I think that trying to compromise can help on the short distance, but then on the long run may cause some difficulties, some frictions. If you realize that your background has quite some differences, as we said before, try to not to compromise on anything. Just understand each other, talk to each other, and appreciate whatever the other part can bring to the relationship, and embrace it. Because I mean, at the end of the story, if you both bring a lot and then you share and accept it, you have more material to share, so more material to enjoy. Try not to preclude anything. In a relationship, it's normal having some small fights. So what we found useful for us is that if there is something in your mind, just share it. Don't hold back. If something is bothering you, just share it. And something that works for us is not to go to sleep angry
at each other.
We always try to patch things up before going to bed.
Yeah, I mean, this works for us. Some people like to sleep on it and then talk about it the day after, for example, and with a fresh view. For us, it doesn't work like that. I mean, we tried it. If I sleep angry, I will wake up angry, and I will be angry the whole time until he talks to me about it. What's very important is that you have to know your partner's love language, but equally important, you have to know their fight language, like how they fight, and then how you are going to together solve it. That's really important. So even at the beginning of the relationship, I told him, look, I'm a person and I act like that when I'm angry and I act like that when I'm sad. And you need to handle me in this particular way. And he just knows it. So I don't just sit and want him to know everything. I just go and tell him, this is how I need to be treated and how the situation needs to be dealt with. And he just, so same for the other way. I know how he's going to act when he's stressed. So even if something goes down, I know, how to handle that. So this is, one thing. And then the other thing that people say sometimes, and I heard about, is that you bring 50-50 in a relationship, which I think doesn't work. There are days when I am only at my 40% and he is at his, and then he has to bring that other 60% to make the whole thing work. There's something like this I heard at a podcast, and I think that works so well. And there are days when he can only give 20% because of his work, or there could be some other things going on. And then I have to understand and bring the other 80% in the relationship to keep things going and, as a team.
Yeah, I definitely agree. So there's one learning. While we lived in Miami, I moved to Miami for him because I didn't like the city. I didn't like the people there, to be honest. I had huge troubles in the beginning to adjust. And I was falling into a deep hole, where I couldn't get up. I didn't have a routine. I felt very uncomfortable in general. And one thing that Nacho mentioned, which I think is actually very true, and I mean, that's the case in any other relationship as well, is okay, Tina, right now, I'm sitting behind the wheel, I'm driving, I'm giving those 120%, and you can lean back, it's fine. But eventually there has to be a time where you take over the wheel and I can lean back and lean on you. And I think that's a very visual picture that tells so much about how a relationship is working and how to support each other. And also what you just said, being aware that you can't always give 80%, and that there are days where the other partner might only be able to give 30 or less, and you have to be strong for the both of you. We've been talking a little bit about everything. We've also been talking about what you're doing as a hobby, creating those amazing reels about mostly stereotypes. But for everyone who would like to learn more about you, what's the best way to connect with you? Where to find you?
That would be the Instagram, I would say. And same way, we also have a YouTube. So yeah, that's the best way, I would say, to reach out to us.
And also on Instagram, we also share the Gmail account that we also used for this interview. And to be honest, she works very hard with our account. So even any person who wants to contact for advice, just for sharing a word, she really works hard to reply to everyone. So yeah, anyone who wants to get in contact.
I love to hear messages from people. Some lovely messages, even sharing some experiences, asking for advice. I just love it to talk to people.
So what I definitely do is, obviously, I'm going to keep on watching your funny reels, and there's so much truth behind it as well. So for me, there's just so much more than just stereotypes, to be honest. It goes so much deeper. So I am so grateful that we had the chance to talk to each other, that I was able to learn a little bit more about you as individuals, but also you as partners. Wish you all the best for the future.
Thank you so much for having us also. It
was very nice.
Good to look at these things, like the whole journey.
Yeah.
I think we haven't talked about it for a while. So it's also nice to,
No, yeah. And it was our first time. So you gave us a very nice opportunity to have this experience.